What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Sheehan Show here on Sherdog.com, and I am back again with my top 5 fights for the upcoming month in the world of mixed martial arts. And we're getting into the summer now. May is here. Spring is kind of in the past, and we're getting into the warm weather. And I love this time of the year. I love because you go on a Saturday, and especially for me here in Ireland, you can maybe go out for a bit of shopping or a bit of dinner, or maybe there's a barbecue on, and you get to the night time here for me, and I'm sure it's different for people over in America, but you've had a nice, lovely, relaxing day, maybe a bit of sunburn going on, and in the fights, come on, whether it is, say, like a Cage Warriors or a KSW fight over here for me that's on in the evening time, maybe, with a couple of drinks or something like that, or, the late night UFC, Bellator 1 Championship or PFL cards. It's great. It's the best time of the year, I think, to watch fights. You're not, from me, frozen, sitting by yourself in the middle of December, contemplating life, watching UFC fight night, who cares versus who cares type of thing, so it's a great time. And, I would, to be fair now, to move away from the positivity here for a second, people are like, oh, what's going on? Not the most stacked month of fights, to be fair. I think once we get even further into the summer, it will be even better. But I have picked out, five pretty good ones for you here. One of these fights, and people will probably think the last one, so we'll get to it. People are probably thinking, like, Sean, you've given out about this fight multiple times. Why have you added it to your 5 fights for the month? We'll leave that to us. I've decided to be nice about this fight right now. Maybe we'll get to it in a second. But yeah, I am... do you know what? I'm kind of concentrating on the lower weight classes here for these 5 fights. Middleweight is the highest we have. We have a few title fights. We have maybe a number 1 contender fight. And we also have a big prospects fight, which I am looking forward to as well. But let's start with the GOAT. The man up there behind my head. Where is he? Demetrious Johnson, who takes on Adriano Moraes. That's my first fight to watch this month. It's on May 5th. It's on the 1 on Prime 10 card. I've been calling it the biggest 1 championship card ever. I spoke to Chatry there the other day, and he's like, no, it's not. The 1X is bigger. And I'm like, okay, yeah, that was bigger. That's fair enough. But this is... I think it's a massively important card for 1 championship for, I think, like a multitude of reasons. The biggest of which is it's in the United States. I asked Chatry about it, and he's like, they're allowed to use their weight cutting, their hydration. They're allowed to use their rule set in terms of the judging, but the actual, the rules of the fight with the knees to the head of a downed opponent and all that being allowed. And I think that's very interesting. I think inside and outside of the cage, it's massively interesting with 1 coming into this market with, Demetrious, who people will want to tune in to watch Demetrious. Roberto Soldic on the card as well. People will want to watch that. And obviously I'll have like a full preview out for that card as well around this time. But I think this is one of those fights between Demetrious Johnson and Adriano Moraes that I think a lot of people, like, obviously I've been covering the 1 championship cards for Sherdog here, so I'm maybe a little bit more invested in terms of having seen these fights and having kind of followed the back and forth of the matchmaking. Not necessarily that there's been massive back and forth between the 2 fighters, but you get what I mean. But I also, and like people like me who've been watching it, will be all in. But I also think people like MMA, just normal MMA fans, casuals maybe a little bit different. Maybe there'll have to be an extra little bit of work on that. But I think MMA fans who maybe only tune in for the UFC or maybe the odd Bellator, if Patricio's fighting or if AJ McKee is fighting, maybe I think this is one of these cards. Like, well, it's in the States, it's on Amazon Prime. Everyone has kind of Amazon Prime, I would say at this stage, even me here in the sticks in Ireland. You can watch it for free, and it's the GOAT, and it's also the GOAT against the guy who is, a lot bigger than him. against the guy who has beaten him once, against the guy who I know a lot of people going into that first fight, maybe even me included, were like, oh, well, Demetrious is just going to go in here and win the belt. And it didn't happen. I know I heard Guillermo Cruz talking about, my guy Grabaka Hitman talking about it as well. I was like, this was no shock. Adriano Moraes is a good fighter. And knocked him out with a knee, obviously, on the ground. And then Demetrious came back in a the second fight that was relatively even and knocked him out with a knee in the second one. So this is a very, very interesting fight to come in here and see it. Now, I know Demetrious was speaking with Ariel, and he was, talking to, talking to Nick above at the score as well, and kind of saying, look, this could really be my last fight. Maybe I could win. I might have another one, or, we'll see. It could be it. And Demetrious is the type of guy, I think, that, if he says it could be my last fight, it could be, right? A lot of people say, I'm going to retire and have, 15 more fights, or they're unretired the next day. And he's, look, let me make it clear, he's not saying he is retiring here, but he's saying he's coming towards the end. And I do tend to believe him. He is a guy who's always had a plan. He's always stuck to his plan. One of the most intelligent fighters of all time, inside and outside of the cage, and always played to his own tune as well. Never got caught up in the whole UFC madness. Never got caught up in any of it. And he got caught up in training and becoming the greatest fighter of all time. And I truly believe that. I think it'll take a lot to get anyone. Like, I think the only one who's come close in the last few years is Volkanovski in terms of the ability. And I don't think he even reached it, to be honest. I think Demetrious is just phenomenal. And any opportunity to see him is special. And I think we should take it. Like, I'm sure even people who, let's say, they hated the Patriots' great team, I'm sure they wanted to see him, like the great Barcelona team. You want to see him, the great Man United team in the late 90s, early 2000s. You want to see him, the great Limerick hurling team of now, or maybe the great Yankees teams, or whatever it was down through the years. We all should want to see him. We all appreciate him. And like sometimes you might be a John Jones fan. You think, he's not the GOAT. John Jones is the GOAT. To mine, Demetrious. And we all do it in all sports, and there's a little bit of like, there's a bit of hater behaviour. This guy, I always said, this guy Ronaldinho, who was a great soccer player, and I'm a Man United fan, and they didn't sign him, and I hated him for years, like, he's no good, he's only a show pony and all this. And I was like, why am I hating this guy? He's a great player. I watch these games, just like half hate him. I'm like, I should be enjoying this. And then I started to enjoy him as a player, and it's good. That's good. It's a healthy thing to do. And Demetrious Johnson is a guy, there's nothing bad about Demetrious. Like, he's a great fighter. He's a finisher. He's a lovely guy. I think he's likable. It's just, I love it. And Adriano Moraes, I don't know as much about Adriano, but what I do know about him is he's a damn good fighter. And this is a fight that I think if you're not looking forward to it, you probably haven't seen the first two fights, and they're on YouTube. I think one do a great job, better job than anyone else, of putting their fights out there for us to see. So without even having looked up yet, as I prepare in here in the next while for that preview, I will tell you they are on YouTube, and you'll be able to see them there. And this one is going to be as good. Like, does Demetrious still have it? Like, Demetrious as well, I think people forget that he's now 36 years of age. He'll be 37 this year, but he came off of that shoulder surgery, remember, against in the fight before Henry Cejudo. The weight in Adriano Moraes, 3 years, he's younger, 33 years of age, but hasn't been down as hard a road as Demetrious, fighting at 135, for 13, 14 fights. As I said, that shoulder injuries coming off. He's had injuries down through the years and surgeries. As Demetrious, like, is he going to be the same? Like, to be honest, I didn't think he was 100% Demetrious in the last fight, to be honest. And I don't think he has been that way since before the second Cejudo fight, since that operation. He's good enough to still win these fights because he's the greatest fighter we've ever seen. But if he takes like a step down from the last fight and Adriano Moraes is still in his prime, it could really go the other way. So I think a lot of people are expecting, okay, look, Moraes won the first fight, DJ won the second fight, DJ will probably win this one again. And that is kind of the prevailing wisdom in all of the trilogies that we've seen down through the years. And I don't know, is it necessarily the case here? This is a little bit of a special one, because like, if it had been the other way around, if Demetrious had won the first fight Adriano had won the second fight, then, absolutely we'd be thinking, okay, Adriano's going to win this one. But I think this is a little bit different because of the age profile, the amount of time he's been around. They're not, Demetrious only had, 5 more fights than Adriano and Moraes, but fights at the top level and preparation for the way he has been fighting is a bit different. So, I think Demetrious, what he needs to do in this fight, and obviously I said we'll break it down more, I think he needs to do what he did the last time, get inside and them land those big shots. Demetrious is going to find it hard, I think, to outpoint a guy like Moraes, especially when there is no points as such. There's no 10-point must system. This fight is scored on a whole, so it's about landing those big knockout blows, and I think Demetrious is going to be looking to do that, and you know what? That's going to make the greatest fighter of all time even better to watch, so I'm down for it, lads, and I can't wait for that fight. Right, the second fight I'm going with, there's two, so that's May 5th, and I have 2 fights from May 6th here. So what a weekend of fights it's going to be here, starting off straight away. The first fight I'm looking at here is, so we've one from the UFC and one from Cage Warriors, both on the same night. Let's go to Cage Warriors first, obviously, because that's it's on in Rome. It's on in an earlier time than the American card will be, obviously. And it's the main event there for the bantamweight title, and it's Dylan Hazan against Caolan Loughran. Dylan Hazan, Italian, 9-0, undefeated, obviously. Caolan Loughran, 7-0, undefeated for the vacant belt. Given up by Martignoni, fellow Italian, I believe, the teammate of Dylan Hazan. He's gone down to fight at 125 now for the title, trying to become a 2-weight champion. And I am very interested to see this fight for a number of reasons, right? So Dylan Hazan has looked absolutely phenomenal, and he was due to fight the likes of Dan Dewey. He's due to fight the likes of Sam Creasy. They fell through, but he beat Josh Reed. He beat Scott Malone. He won his last fight very quickly on short notice against Jefferson de Filippis. And I think that this is really the first big test of Hazan's career, right? Now, he's those lads there, I said, are tests, right? Those lads I said are definitely tests. But if you look at Caolan Loughran, he's kind of had that fight now against Luke Shanks. Like Shanks, fighting for titles left, right and centre, came into the fighting and this fight's going to be a win here against Caolan Loughran, and Loughran destroyed him, really beat him in the second round. And look, he's had the warm-up fights, let's say, on the local scene. Came in, he fought Festus Aurelio, who's a very good 5-0 prospect as well, but then had that big Shanks fight. So it's funny because Caolan Loughran was viewed as the guy who, he fought Will Kearns and Rhys Street, and he was viewed as the guy who's like, he's beating cans. But funnily, that's actually turned now to where I think that Luke Shanks fight has changed everything. And I am very interested to see who is ready for this level between the two of them. Now, maybe both of them are, and maybe it'll be a very, very close fight. But I just wonder, will someone take the initiative? Will someone show themselves as the better fighter? And honestly, I don't know the answer to that, and that's why we watch fights, I suppose. But I look at Dylan Hazan and I see, the cool, kind of calm work, good everywhere, good all around fighter. And you look and a very kind of straight up, I think, if you looked at Dylan Hazan, anyone who's never seen him before, you'll see a fighter that you've seen 100 times, right? And maybe a better version of, 97 of him or something, but a good, straight up technical fighter in all areas. When you look at Caolan Loughran, that's not what you see. You see a good technical fighter, but you also see a very unusual type of fighter who kind of, especially for the 135-pound division, he kind of stands in this, unmovable middle of the cage stance with his jab out there, and he kind of walks you down slowly, almost lulls you into a game. And I think that is, honestly, I was very unsure of it. I was very unsure if that game can be successful, but he's shown it can, right? He's beaten some very, very good guys with it, and I'm very interested if it goes to this level, if he can win against Hazan. But I said it like after the Shanks fight, that I believe in him now. I believe in the way he's fighting now, and I think he can take it on fighting in this style. And you know what? I'm not going to back down on that now. I think he can. Will he win this? Will Hazan win it? Who knows? But I think it's going to be a damn good fight, and I'm looking forward to seeing it. On the same night, that's Cage Warriors 154. On the same night, UFC 288, Sterling and Cejudo. Look, this one speaks for itself. The former champ Cejudo against Sterling. And you know what? It's another one. I actually tend to pick fights, and I just realised, looking at all of them here, ones that I really haven't a clue who's going to win. Right? Sometimes, and you know, I did a couple of months ago, I picked Tatiana Suarez, and we kind of all knew who was going to win that one, and maybe another couple of fights as well. But all 5 here, I don't know who's going to win them. I really don't like it. I think all of these fights really are toss-ups. And I think the Sterling Cejudo one is so interesting because Henry Cejudo has been out now for a good bit, right? So how is he going to look coming back in here? I think that's the thing that people are kind of like saying, oh, look, this is how Henry fights. This is how he's fought. This is how this fight will look. Henry hasn't fought in, I think it's 3 days minus 3 years. By the time this fight, and that was against Dominic Cruz, you know, and the fight before that was against Marlon Moraes. They weren't exactly like, you know, at the time the highest level. Like Cruz, I think was mad to think that was 3 years ago now at this stage, but you know, and Moraes especially was not on that level. But it's been a long time away from him, and Sterling has been in there, and I think what Sterling has been doing has been proving everyone wrong. Has been improving, has been getting to a level that is the apex of modern mixed martial arts now, along with the likes of Volkanovski, Makhachev, and the other champions in the UFC. That's what Sterling has been doing, you know? And I just wonder, like, how much you can keep up that ability, that competitiveness, that high-level advantage. Because... and it's not necessarily an advantage over Sterling or an advantage over any of the top guys, but it's an advantage over maybe the chasing pack in those weight classes. I'm very interested to see if Cejudo has been able to upkeep that or has been able to recapture that getting into this camp, because I don't think that is a certainty whatsoever. What I do think is a certainty is Aljamain Sterling showing up here and being at, as I said, the apex of the sport. I think that he will produce everything that he's produced in these last few fights, and the answer to that will come from Cejudo. Can he deal with it? You know, how is this fight going to look like? We'll talk about this and we'll break it down, I'm sure, over the next while. It's probably not the time to do it now as like an analytical breakdown, but like a few questions. Who will take who down? Can Sterling take Cejudo down? Be tough. Demetrious did it. Can Cejudo takes Sterling down? It'll be tough. He's a very good wrestler, but Cejudo, an Olympic level wrestler, he took Demetrious down the other way around, didn't he, in the next fight, if I'm not mistaken? Who's going to win that battle? Like, Cejudo's been fighting this kind of outside karate fighting stance for the last while, whereas you would think the longer, taller, bigger man in Sterling would be able to win that battle. But when Cejudo fights that way, will Sterling actually be able to win that battle? Like, if he does come in, say, with a long jab or a jab to the body, which he's brilliant at, will Cejudo be like switching stances, turning away from it, missing that punch? I really don't know. I think there are so many unanswered questions in this, and like all of that is predicated on how Cejudo looks. Like, if Cejudo comes in here and he looks like a guy who's been out of the cage for 3 years, I think he'll get destroyed. Destroyed. You can't play at that level. You cannot play. If he comes in here and he looks good, if he looks like the old Cejudo, toss of a coin. I really don't know. But I think if you're like picking this fight, we'll obviously pick it when we get to it, but I think you have to lean Sterling here. I wonder the people, let me know in the comment section below who you're picking. Are you picking Sterling and Cejudo? Because I feel like there are too many unanswered questions at Cejudo. If he can answer the questions, he can win the fight. All right, but Sterling really has no unanswered questions. Interesting fight. I cannot wait for it. Speaking of, I suppose, unanswered questions, May 13th, the UFC on the ABC card. The fight I'm looking forward to here is Ian Garry versus Daniel Rodriguez. You know, obviously Ian Garry, I picked 2 Irish lads here, so I'm kicking in my little bit of bias here, but I think most people would agree that this fight, you know, on that card, Rosenstruck and Gelton Almeida, I think Gelton is one of the best up-and-comers. Looking forward to seeing that. the Johnny Walker Anthony Smith fight, you know, could be the number one contender to the number one contender or something like that. But this to me is like the standout fight on the card almost. Like Ian Garry now 11-0. Rodriguez is a guy who's been like on the brink, I suppose, of the top 15. I think he even broke into it there for a while. Obviously lost that fight to Neil Magny, was supposed to fight Gunnar Nelson. That didn't happen, but he was on a 5-fight win streak before that, beating the likes of Li Jingliang and Kevin Lee. You know, and that you know, he's beaten Tim Means before that and beaten Mike Perry. We were talking about Ian Garry, and I remember last time someone suggested like a Tim Means or someone like that, which I think would have been, you know, a good test. Now he's been tested against a guy who's beaten those sort of tests, like Li Jingliang would have been a good test. And obviously Mike Perry's not there, but fighters like that. But now he's gone above that. So Ian Garry's not only taking a step up, I think he's taken 2 to 3 steps up here. And now not from Ian Garry's ability, but the ability of the guys he's been fighting. He's fighting now on the brink of the top 15. I was thinking he'd get another fight before fighting on the brink of the top 15, but the UFC are pushing him in here, and I think I couldn't agree with it. I couldn't disagree with it. I wouldn't say he's not ready for it. He absolutely may be. 11-0, look good against Keenan Song, apart from he's that big knockdown in the first, but showed his improvements. Showed as well, like, I've been covering Ian Garry since before his debut, interviewed him before he debuted as a pro, and he is the type of guy who has always kind of got hit, got really mad, and got better because he's gotten hit. You know, I remember one time on over in Severe MMA on the podcast, I was saying, "Oh, do you know, Ian, he needs to stop getting hit a little bit," and he was giving out to me afterwards. He said, "Hi, I'm not. Maybe I did get hit, but I'm not getting hit anymore, or whatever. I never got hit in the last one." And you know, he will have taken that, and I'm sure he will have worked in an awful lot. And sometimes you see a guy and they're hitting, something happens to him, and they just ignore it and they put it to the side, like, that'll never happen again. I don't think Ian Garry's one of them. I think he'll go back and he'll be like, "I can't believe I did this. I can't believe I made this mistake. I'm never going to make that mistake again," and spend 2 weeks working on that one specific thing in the gym. I haven't spoken to him. He's just that type of lad, I think. And this is a massive step up. Like, I do think this will be a striking matchup. I do think this will be a technical striking matchup. And like, I'm really looking forward to it. Really, really, really looking forward to, like, who will be able to win that jamming battle? Who will be able to win the battle of combinations? Who has the better durability? That's another thing as well. Like, Ian has been cut before in fights. The Jack Grant fight, he was able to show his durability in that. He was able to show he went 5 rounds in that fight as well, knocked down in the last fight. So it's not as if Ian Garry is just a sweet summer child who's never been hit or anything like that. He absolutely has been. But this is a different level. Is he ready for the level? I think so. I think so, but we'll find out on May 13th, and I can't wait for it. And in the last fight I'm looking at, lads, this is the one. So May 12th, I've done these backwards, but who cares? May 12th, Bellator 296, the same weekend anyway. Gegard Mousasi versus Fabian Edwards. It's on over in Paris. And this is a fight that when it was made, I was like, why did you make this fight? I'm like, Fabian Edwards has done enough, right? He should be fighting for the title next, and now you're putting him in there against the guy who just lost the title. This is a bit of the Max Holloway, Arnold Allen's like, oh, it's a great fight, but I'm like, why are you doing that? You know, this is the first fight since Mousasi lost the title against Johnny Eblen, and for Fabian, he has, he's been looking good the last while. Beat Charlie Ward. Wasn't that impressive, but the Lyoto Machida win was very good after coming off a couple of losses that Austin Vanderford won, somewhat controversial close decision. As was the Costello Vancinas one, I suppose, but I think Costello did. I think both guys, you could definitely argue they won. But anyway, he's won 2 fights after that, bounced back from that, and I don't know if Costello's, I was looking a couple of weeks ago, he wasn't in the rankings. He should definitely be in the rankings now, and I think he should probably be the number 1 contender after beating Fabian Edwards. But if he's not, Fabian should be the next guy, and the fact that he's not is very weird. But forget about that, because the winner of this will be the next guy. Mousasi, has he done enough in his career to earn a rematch, even though he was dominated against Eblen? If he beats Edwards, yes, I think that would be fair. Maybe it will be Costello, maybe it will be someone else, but to put himself back in that mix. If Fabian wins, undoubtedly he's done enough to earn that, and I think he will get that. Could it be in Dublin maybe? I think that's a possibility. Johnny Eblin was over in Dublin a few weeks ago at the Bellator card. I could see that happening. But this fight itself, it's a very interesting fight because, you know, I'll obviously be breaking it down, and the